morning, everyone, and welcome to Think Future. My name's Chris Kalaboukis, and once again, we're coming at you live from deep, deep, deep in the heart of Silicon Valley, California. We're talking innovation startups, the future, not necessarily those, and not necessarily in that order. If you're watching on YouTube, smack that subscribe button and hit that bell so you can be notified when a new show comes online. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast service, please subscribe and please drop a note on Apple Podcasts. I'd greatly appreciate it. Now, you guys know I'm a libertarian, right? So I'm not on the left or I'm not on the right, and I typically do not talk politics. You all know I hardly ever talk politics on this show. I used to talk politics on my last show where I had 900 episodes, and then they went poof because the company that I was hosting it with disappeared. Yes, dumb thing, my fault. I didn't keep backup copies. I trusted people. This is what happens when you trust people, right? Anyways, so y'all know I'm a libertarian. So y'all know what my thoughts are on free speech. I'm a free speech absolutist, kind of like Elon Musk. He says he's a free speech absolutist, but he isn't really a free speech absolutist because a lot of people don't like free speech absolutists. It's like uncomfortable for them to be around people who are, you can say whatever you want. I'm not going to be offended because people will be offended. People can be offended. People can say offensive things. In fact, I've said it before. One of the reasons why all of these bots go bad on the internet is because it's using the internet to figure out how human beings interact with each other. Well, the internet is not how human beings interact with each other. We don't interact with each other the way we did on the internet. If we did, we'd probably be beating the crap out of each other when we met. We're purposely outrageous and angry and completely different people on the internet. We're like a completely different person. It's almost like we put on an internet persona just to drive as many views and likes and blah, blah, blah as we've gone. But we're not really like that in person. You meet in person, and we're not really like that. We're not that outrageous. We don't try to drive people insane so that they can keep their eyeballs on us. But I digress. So recently, there has been an act winding its way through Congress called the Restrict Act. And supposedly, the idea behind it was to add a little bit more rigor around foreign interference in elections, foreign interference in communication, foreign interference in disinformation, etc., ostensibly targeted to TikTok. Because the thing with TikTok is that TikTok is a little on the edge of, is it okay or not? Is it a CCP sponsored thing? If a government employee had TikTok on their phone and also had some restricted information on their phone, would the CCP be able to, the Chinese Communist Party, would they be able to access that information? So one of the reasons why they decided to get rid of Chinese cameras in places, because they figured that maybe the Chinese were putting something in the cameras that would send information back to China. Now, I don't have any evidence of any of this, but apparently this is the crux of the Restrict Act, was to take certain social media and monitor that social media, and if it's doing something untoward that I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for, that endangers national security, that it's okay for us to ban that app or not allow people to use that app. Just kick it out of the App Store, kick it out of Google Play, and nobody can use that app anymore. So they were using TikTok as the example because they thought, well, maybe if it's state sponsored, a lot of the information. So when you load these phone apps on your phone, it asks you all sorts of information, like, oh, can I track things outside of the app? And if you're smart, you'd say no. But some people are like, whatever. They don't care, and it can go ahead and grab things outside of the app and send it on to China. Now, for most people, that's probably not a big deal, but for some people, it is a big deal. So from a privacy perspective, it is a big deal. But, and here's a situation where the cure is worse than the disease, because the fact that we have TikTok everywhere is because our system is based generally on free speech. If you write an app and you put it up there, and as long as it's not doing anything overtly illegal, then you can put it up there, Apple will approve it, and boom, you're off to the races. It's an assumption that you're not doing anything evil and you're going to get through with it. So you're free to do things and then maybe get slapped down later if you do something bad. But this act is unnecessarily broad, which is exactly what happens with almost all legislation, is that on the one hand, yes, they want to zoom in on this particular issue, TikTok, and do something about this particular issue. But it's written so broad because you get all sorts of people in government love control, by the way. Why would you even bother getting into government unless you're a control person, unless you like controlling things, other people, making things happen, controlling those things, controlling people? Unless you like control, why would you even get into the government? Now, some people say, well, that's not how politicians are supposed to work. They're supposed to listen to people and implement things. But everyone knows that once these people are in power, it ain't necessarily so. So this is what ends up happening, is that all of a sudden you see these things that are supposedly well-meaning get twisted and say, well, maybe we should expand it beyond this, and maybe we should expand it beyond that, and maybe we should look at this, maybe we should look at that, maybe we should define disinformation and misinformation in certain ways, which is, of course, BS, because there's no such thing as misinformation and disinformation. It's just all information. Whether it's true or not is a different story. So here's my point, is that this act is going to bring a chilling effect to the entire internet. Now, right now, what's happening is that since we are all watching things through the lens of these services, I mean, almost all of us, we only experience the internet through a few places. We experience it through Google, we experience it through Facebook, we experience it through Amazon, we experience it through Apple, we experience it, there's like 5 or 6 different places where we experience the internet. And it never was like that from the beginning. From the beginning, we all used to go directly to people's sites, and people would promote their websites and websites and websites and websites, and you would not have this sort of portal kind of thing that you have to go through every time. And Google and Facebook and YouTube and Amazon and Apple and all those major companies, maybe 10 companies in total, control the entire interface to the internet. So it's easy for them to squelch anything that they feel is misinformation or disinformation. I told you already, those things don't exist, but they label it as such because they have a particular agenda they want to follow. So here is the thing, is that when these acts come out, they're very rarely restricted to those specific things. So they're going to come in and they're going to affect a lot of things. And whether you're on the left or the right or the middle or wherever you are, it could have the effect of shutting down free speech. And that is the last thing we want to do here, because where else are you going to have the free speech that you want? Now, I haven't read the act. I've read analyses of the act, and analyses of the act from people I trust, and it sounds to me that this is not a very good idea in its current form. But then again, as a libertarian, I could say that my initial assumption of any time there's a government intervention in anything, that it's going to be a negative for the rest of us, right? So I'm not asking you to do anything political. I'm just saying, read up on this. Understand what is happening here. Is this act going to be something that we have to concern ourselves with, where the news sources and the media and the things that we watch and read and glean our truth of the world from, if those are going to be imperiled by this act, then there's a cause for concern there. I don't think, like I said, I'm a free speech absolutist. I don't know if you are. I don't know how you feel on that topic. But if you ask me, it's completely connected with innovation, because it's like talking about where you can go when you need to solve a problem, right? When you need to solve a problem, everything needs to be on the table. Even things that are uncomfortable, even things that are illegal, even things that are on the edge. Everything as an idea should be on the table. Whether or not it's doable is a different thing. And even ideas that make you feel uncomfortable, even ideas that are on the edge of free speech, could be something that's amazingly innovative and disruptive and profitable for your company. But if you're not even allowed to talk about it, then how do you know that you can even do it? And it's the same thing I have with longevity studies. There's lots of people who are anti-longevity studies because they figure that this is it. Human beings should only live this long. And I'm like, why? We don't even know if we can extend our lifespan. Let's try to do something before we know if we should do it or not. It's the art of the possible. We need to figure out if it's possible. And shutting down speech because you might not like the answer is not the solution when it comes to innovation or anything else for that matter. That's it for me for today. See you next time, and until then, don't forget to think future.